Hey Sean. Um, a morning stream because I'm awake, while also streaming my Alaska legislation bill that's going through today with a vote for right to repair. Good morning, JFix. And how are you and Sean? Good. I'm glad. I decided while I'm waiting to do my uh, testimony, I'll do a repair. Woo! Thank you, JFix. No, I'm not going to furry jail, Sean. That's your personal prison. Let's just hope I don't fuck up. Also, is the video of the House bill audio playing? I guess I could just unmute this.
Or very assertive solutions
Okay, yeah, it is.
The deadly impacts of traffic.
What do you mean no audio? It seems to be playing just fine.
We welcome and have requested support from the state to come up with solutions that will work. So that's the kind of 2 points. Privacy is important, and we've been begging for help. So this proposal is interesting in the sense that, the local government tends to object pretty loudly to any access privacy. However, this one is unique in that it takes one step of privacy from us to the state by saying you can't ban these things, but it does not force implementation. And so it's important to recognize that what this bill does is it provides the local governments, the jurisdictions, the authority to move forward should the legislative body desire to do that after a public hearing and additional public process that we would have. And so this is a modified privacy. had my hands full dealing with real-time crime police centers and drones and AI and all of that stuff relating to the public safety question. And so because of that, this just never raised up to a point where it was low enough hanging fruit for us to act that would meaningfully achieve the outcome. And so it's because it's complicated, to put it quite simply.
Okay. Further questions for Assemblymember Constant? Do you have a question for Assemblymember Constant? Okay.
Potentially.
Okay. Representative Mears.
Through the chair to the committee, and then Chair Constant, if you can confirm, it's not an ordinance that's changing here. The process is, this is something that is in the charter. It is a complex process. We are not usurping the decision-making from the municipality of Anchorage. We are kind of resetting. Anything that is going to happen will be the choice of local government. As Chair Constant explained, it's an unusual circumstance of where we're at right now. This does not take the responsibility into the state's hands to decide it. It is just resetting the process for the municipality of Anchorage.
Okay, with all of that discussion, Representative Prox, did you have another question or comment?
Well, just, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. I suppose in District 33, well, there are a couple, no, there aren't any traffic lights in District 33. But I do know that the state often does road improvements, safety improvements, and that process, it's supposed to involve public input and whatnot, but the public isn't really alerted to the problem until pretty much the decision is made. And this pertains to, well, just road safety improvements, traffic circles, intersection improvements, warning lights about PM 2.5, etc. And when it's done, it's a small group of people that wants to do something through the state. They come to us, or they come to DOT, or they come to somebody else, but the public is really not involved if the state decides that they do want to put up, in this case, traffic safety cameras. By the time the public would be made aware of this in a practical way, the decision is already made. So this takes the authority away from the citizens, and if, in the case of the interior, if the city council, Fairbanks City Council, whatever, wants to do that, then the public would be alerted while they still have time to express their opinion. So that's my objection to it.
Okay, Representative Fields?
Sean,
Yeah,
there's
just
audio.
through the chair, Representative Prox, at least in Anchorage, where we have a combination of state and local roads, local citizens and local government actually have requested changes on state roads, and a lot of those changes are to reduce the number of deaths, and the state has gone along with some of those, and Ms. Golden mentioned some of those, like adding a crosswalk. They're in the process of adding a crosswalk at Benson and Minnesota, but the state has actually blocked narrowing some roads in a way that would reduce speeds, and high speeds are why, as Mr. Constant mentioned, people are dying. So the ability to use traffic safety cameras is actually necessary, especially on larger roads. And you'll probably recall that we talked about the fact that these very large intersections are unenforceable in the absence of traffic safety cameras. They are large intersections because the state has not changed the configuration of the road, even though the local government has asked for that. So the state has refused to listen to the local government. Therefore, traffic safety cameras are actually necessary merely to enforce the law. So that's what's going on right now, unfortunately.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Representative Hall?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. This question is for Representative Fields, also Representative Nelson. I recall in the first hearing, there was concern from Representative Nelson about the phrase "a municipality may not ban the use," and I was given the very strong impression that you guys were going to be connecting online to find language that would be a compromise. I think that's fair to say, and I'm curious if those conversations ever took place.
Through the chair, we did talk about it actually, and if Representative Nelson wanted to run a conceptual amendment, may implement or something like that, I would be supportive of it. I don't think it's the most artful way to say it. Kind of comes out the same way, but I think if you all wanted to replace may not ban with may implement or something like that, I would be supportive of it. It gets the same thing, because my goal here is purely restoring local authority.
Okay, Representative Ayers.
I'm sorry, I want to jump in on process. We've got a motion to move this on the table. We're done with amendments.
Yeah. We have a motion to move the bill. I'm going to take a quick at ease. We're back on record. We have a motion before us to move HB 282. Is there more discussion?
Let me restate the motion just to make sure that we're all starting there.
Sounds
So,
good. Co-Chair Mears.
I move HB 282, Work Order 34-LS1347 \A from committee as amended with attached fiscal notes and it not amended. I did read this already, but I move HB 282, Work Order 34-LS134 \A from committee with attached fiscal notes, individual recommendations.
And that was 1347 \A, to be clear. All right, is there more discussion?
For clarification, I'll remove my earlier objection if that's interpreted as being an objection to the original motion.
So are there objections to moving this bill? Seeing none. HB 282, Work Order 34-LS1347 \A moves from committee with attached fiscal notes and individual recommendations. All right, let's move to our yeah, I'm kind of, okay, we will take an at ease for the paperwork. All right, we are back on record, and the next item on our agenda is HB 286 firefighters EMS property tax exemption. This is the third hearing on the bill. Please note that after documents were sent out, we received a letter of support from Alaska Municipal League. It is on basis and on members' desks. We did not receive any amendments by the deadline. So Kendra Broussard, who is staff representative Elam, could you please come forward and just give us a little recap of what the bill does?
Through the chair, my name is Kendra Broussard, staff representative Elam. Through the chair, House Bill 286 allows municipalities to offer a property tax exemption for volunteer firefighters and EMS providers and gives them the flexibility to set the amount, which is currently set up with capped at $10,000. It's a modest, locally controlled way to support recruitment, retention, and recognize those serving our communities. And thank you if you guys have any questions.
And I just want to let the committee know, we also have Sandra Moeller, Director of the Division of Community and Regional Affairs, Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development online, and Dan Nelson, the State Assessor, Division of Community and Regional Affairs, Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development, is also online. So are there committee questions on this bill? Representative Mears.
I move HB 286, Work Order 34-LS1341/A from committee with attached fiscal notes and individual recommendations.
Hearing no objections, HB 286, Work Order 34-LS1341/A moves from committee with attached fiscal notes and individual recommendations. We're going to take a quick at ease to do the paperwork.
Hello, Andrew. This is my House legislation hearing for right to repair. We're like the fourth on the docket. And I'm testifying today, so. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's for House Bill 162. I think I'm next. Or we're next.
Okay, we're back on record, and the next item on our agenda is HB 255 Senior Citizen Grants Dividend Raffle. This is the third hearing on the bill, and I will entertain a motion to adopt the committee substitute as the working document. Representative Mears.
I move that the committee adopts the committee substitute for HB 255, Work Draft 34-LS1126/G as our working document.
And I will object for purposes of an explanation and invite my staff member, Thatcher Brower, to come forward and explain the changes. And I should mention that Representative Stapp has joined us for this bill. Thank you for being here since it is your bill. It's 8:37 and he's with us. Okay, Thatcher.
Great. Good morning, Thatcher Brower, staff representative Himshoot and the House Community and Regional Affairs Committee for the record. I'm going to go over the
Hey, Pete.
explanation of changes for the CS for HB
Yeah, right to repair.
255.
Whoop, whoop.
The first change is in the
And
title, and it's updated to
My
reflect
legislation
the rest of the
hearing
bill.
for right to repair includes
The
video
second
game
change is in
equipment.
section
And
7 of the
fixes
bill.
a lot of the stuff that
and
other right to repair hearings
The
are
change,
not
a
fixing
couple of changes that are
or
made in
addressing.
section 7. One is the provision that would have established an endowment fund is removed completely. And that's on page 5, line 30 through page 6, line 27 in the original version of the bill. Language in section 7 is also amended so that a portion of the donations received through the permanent fund dividend raffle go to the Alaska Senior Benefits Payment Program established under AS 47.45.301 through 47.45.309. In section 7, the percentage of payments are 37.5% to the Alaska Senior Benefits Payment Program, 25% will still go to the Senior Citizen Grants Dividend Raffle, and 37.5% will go to the Department of Health for distribution of grants, as outlined in the original bill. The next change is there's an addition of a new section 8, and in that section, the amount of the senior benefits for each dividend, or each, not dividend, excuse me, each income bracket is increased by $50. And that's still subject to appropriation, so that it's only if funds are available. The third change is in section 9 of the version G, and that section repeals the 2034 sunset date for the senior benefits program. The final section is section 10, and the uncodified law of the state of Alaska is amended with additional language that clarifies that the increase in cash payments will go into effect once the bill becomes law.
Okay, thank you for walking us through that. I'm going to, did I object? I'm going to remove my objection to adopting the committee substitute. Are there other objections?
Object.
Okay, Representative Prox, would you like to speak to your objection?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just this fund will be totally, I think the amendment means that this fund will be totally funded through donations from the dividend program. Am I understanding that correctly? For
Representative
whoever
Prox, I
made
don't
the-
think that changed in the CS. Yeah, it's the same as the original bill.
What the heck? Okay.
So are you still objecting to adopting
No,
the
I'll
CS?
remove my objection.
Okay, with that objection removed, if there's no further objection, we're going to adopt the CS so we're adopting the CS for HB 255 Work Draft 34-LS1126/G as our working document. And I wanted to invite Representative Stapp as the author of the original bill and Elizabeth Rexford at the table to answer any questions. And online, we also have Vivian Stryver, who we've heard from in invited and public testimony, and Bob Syvertson is online for questions. He's the chairman of the Alaska Commission on Aging. And in the room with us today, we have Tony Newman, who's the director of the Division of Senior Benefits here in person. So we have lots of folks who can answer questions. Let's take a really quick Eddie's. Okay, so we're back on record. Are there committee questions or committee discussion of the CS? Representative St. Clair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the sponsor or staff, this does not create, I think the amendment took out some type of fund that was created as a subset of the general fund. With that being taken out, the fund that now the funds go into, is that a dedicated fund specifically for this or not?
Representative Stapp?
Yeah, for the record, Representative Stapp, thank you, Chair Himshoot, for me being at the committee today and taking up this bill, and through the chair to Representative St. Clair. Just removing the endowment doesn't create any type of dedicated fund. The funds will basically just roll into the program and then into the general fund. I think the most substantial change in the CS you're going to find in Section 8, which is Section 8 of the bill, which is basically the increase in the senior benefits payments. So that will almost certainly net a $6 million or so fiscal note because there's about 20,000 recipients on the program. And I don't know what the expected raffle would generate. I would imagine the change in the CS would net a fiscal note upwards of $6 million. Through the chair.
Follow-up?
Chair Mears? Oh, sorry, follow-up?
Through the chair, Representative Stapp, this models the education raffle, correct?
Representative Stapp?
Yeah, for the record, Representative Stapp. Through the chair to Representative St. Clair. In some sections of the bill, yeah, in the CS changes adds different sections of the bill. One of the changes just clarifies the existing education raffle, and then this Section 8 basically changes the senior benefit payment distributions. But the rest of the bill is very similar to the education raffle. Through the chair.
Thank you.
Co-Chair Mears?
Thank you. Mr. Newman, if you could join us, I wanted to verify. So the way my understanding is the way senior benefits are paid out now is up to this amount, and it's more based on what funding is available. It's not a requirement to pay out to that amount. If we were to look at inflation adjusting this amount, it would double. So this is a modest increase rather than where we're at. Mr. Newman, could you verify the payout?
Mr. Newman, could you put your name on record
If
and
that's helpful.
help us with that answer?
Thank you. My name is Tony Newman. I'm the director of the Division of Senior and Disability Services, which does not house the Senior Benefits Program, I'm afraid. No, Senior Benefits is housed in the Division of Public Assistance. So I would be able to speak to questions about the grants that go to senior organizations, but the Division of Public Assistance would be able to speak to the Senior Benefits Program.
Apologies, we do have someone else in the room that can help, Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. If Courtney Enright could come forward and put yourself on record, please.
Courtney Enright, Legislative Liaison for the Department of Health, and I can be very high level, but in general, the Senior Benefits Program is a benefit program that we pay out to seniors under a certain income threshold. We do write the fiscal note to what you guys write in statute, which is to say to fund it to the full amount, but you are correct. There are statutory provisions that when the legislature chooses not to fund it fully, we reduce at the highest income tier first, and then we go down to that middle income tier, and then of course the lowest income tier for reductions. And that has happened quite a number of times over the past.
Thank you, Ms. Enright. Through the chair, do you have on hand about how much of the maximum we're paying? Like, I don't believe we're there.
I'll have to fix that
Roughly where
in
we're at with the
about
payments.
an hour or two.
Okay.
Because
Well, through the chair, I have a
don't
quick
have
cheat
access
sheet
to my
I've pulled
website
up.
now.
I know that the maximum written
For some
currently in
reason, this
statute is
computer can't access
$250. We are paying out all the benefits to the maximum amount currently. There is a supplemental ask in the budget.
Well, thank you for bringing
I
it to
think
my
in the amount
attention.
of like $1 to $2 million that would shore up this year's funding, but we are still currently paying out benefits at the full amount.
Follow-up?
Thank
I
you through the
appreciate it.
chair. It's my understanding
I
there
would
was
rather you let me
more
know
demand
than
for the program this year, and that is where
finding
this
out
supplemental
later
is
that
coming
someone
from.
posts online, oh,
Through
well,
the
I
chair,
would have donated to
Representative
this
Mears,
guy, but
yes, we have seen more individuals qualified than we had forecasted last time we did projections and notes, and so that is what, as I understand, is largely driving the increase in senior benefits.
Thank you.
Questions? I have a question for Ms. Enright. So, Ms. Enright, I thought we were paying a minimal amount right now. We're not paying the full amount, are we, in senior benefits?
Through the chair, Chair Himshoot, yes, we are paying the full amount of senior benefits as prescribed in statute.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, other questions for Ms. Enright? Questions for Representative Stapp or the folks online? Okay, so, let's see, where are we? Are we on the motion to adopt still?
We've adopted.
We're past that, right, okay. I'm gonna take a little at ease here. Okay, so we're back on record, and I don't see any additional questions, so we're gonna go ahead and set the CS aside for right now. And then we're having a technology issue for our next bill, so we're gonna take a little breather, and we'll go back at ease until we can get that sorted. At ease.
Hello, Russie. Ja, it is a Yeti.
Okay, we're back on the record. The final item on our agenda is HB 162 Digital Product Repair. This is the second hearing on the bill, and I will entertain a motion to adopt the committee's.
Actually, mine. This is Alaska's pushing right for repair.
Of parts or components that the digital product manufacturer has not approved and or reduces the functionality of said parts upon installation. It also clarifies that manufacturers are not required to provide parts, tools, or documentation necessary to override anti-theft or privacy security measures. Since this is inserted before the section previously named 45.45.820, it updates section titles to follow as well. On page 3, section 45.45.830, it adds to the section the specification that power sports equipment will be treated the same as farm equipment in that manufacturers of this type of equipment will provide directly or through authorized service providers parts on terms that are reasonable considering agreed upon conditions, quality of parts, and timeliness of delivery. On page 4, section 45.45.890, it creates this section which adds 2 exemptions to AS 45.45.800 through 45.45.899, medical devices and motor vehicles. And on page 5, section 45.45.890, it adds a definition of power sports equipment under the definition section. And multiple sections, pages 1 through 5, it deletes instances of 45.45.800 through 45.45.890 and replaces it with 45.45.800 through 45.45.899.
Okay, welcome, Rep. Dybert. Would you like to put yourself on record?
Good morning, Chair Himshoot and esteemed members of the RCA committee. Representative Maxine Dybert for the record.
And we have moved the CS. I'm going to remove my objection now that we've heard the changes. Is there an objection?
Object.
Okay, there is an objection. Would you like to speak to your objection?
Yes, thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I think it would be worthwhile to explain the changes in terms that the general public might have a better idea of what's going on. Example, creates this section which adds 2 exemptions to 45.45.800 through 45.45.899 medical devices and motor vehicles. I'm not sure that that is going to be readily apparent to the public, but the whole thing needs to be explained in terms that the general public can understand. If you would, please.
We do have a presentation about the bill, and so, I mean, I guess we could keep the motion open and hear the presentation, and then
Yeah,
complete the
That would
action on
be-
the motion. Okay,
would be good.
let's go forward to that. Representative Dybert and Emma Solchinsky, you guys are already before us and on record. If you would like to go ahead and present the slides, then we'll go back to the motion.
Thank you, Chair Himshoot, and thank you through the chair to Representative Prock. So hopefully we have, this slideshow will clear things up for you all and for the public, and then we have some testimony too. That will help after.
Don't think we'll go to testimony until we've dealt with the motion, but yeah, I think the slides will meet the need.
And Chair Himshoot, sorry, I just came from running a hearing right now, so I'm a little discombobulated. Through the chair, is it all right if I read my introduction before we do the slideshow of the bill?
Yeah, I wonder, are we getting too far afield here from the motion? I guess it speaks to your objection, so yeah, let's just go ahead and go forward with the presentation however you wanted to do it.
Okay. Good morning, co-chairs Himshoot and Mears and members of the committee. I just want to thank you for hearing this House Bill 162, our Right to Repair Bill. For the record, I am Representative Maxine Dybert for House District 31 in downtown Fairbanks, and thank you to my legislative intern, Emma Solchinsky, for really taking the reins on this bill and helping me moving it forward. This bill had its first hearing last session while I was actually presenting a different bill in another committee at the exact same time. So I appreciate the opportunity to present House Bill 162 today and speak briefly about the bill. And Emma Solchinsky described some of the changes we have made. And I just wanted to have the committee just kind of think about repair and the products that we buy. Whether you realize it or not, you have likely experienced the consequences of the lack that we have the right to repair. So if we think of a time when a product that we've all owned stopped working, for me right now, it's my dishwasher at home. Were you able to repair it? Think about, did you have the tools that were needed to repair it? Could you find someone locally who could come out to your house and fix it, look at it, help you problem solve? Or did you ultimately have to replace it? And unfortunately, that's where my family and I are with our dishwashers. We probably will have to replace it. So committee members and co-chairs across Alaska, we hear stories like this all the time. And in my community of Fairbanks, we have a lot of mining industry. And a company reported recently to me spending hundreds of thousands of dollars just to become authorized to repair its own equipment to do its daily business, while operations were paused during that month-long process of waiting for parts or tools to help repair the parts. This was not only expensive in fees, but in costs associated with the loss of business. Committee members recently in Dillingham, residents described having to pool their funds together to fly in a technician to repair multiple Toyo stoves in their community because it was the only affordable option to get someone out to Dillingham from a hub like Anchorage or Fairbanks. Whether it's a dishwasher like mine with one broken button, the start button wouldn't work, that cannot be repaired, a tractor that requires a technician to be flown in just to reset a code, or our laptops that needs a single replacement part that is impossible to find. These stories are incredibly common. The lack of repair accessibility is not just expensive, it places substantial burdens on individuals, families. It's expensive for businesses and our communities. Here in Alaska, inaccessible repairs are more than a simple inconvenience. They can pose a genuine threat to individual safety and community well-being. In a rural community, if a snow machine breaks down, it may have a disastrous implication for a family's ability to travel to hunt their food or get help in an emergency. In regions where communities depend on subsistence activities for survival and are far from outside help, self-sufficiency and the ability to maintain critical items are absolutely essential. My family knows what it is like to struggle with access to repairs. I grew up in the village of Tanana, Alaska, out on the Yukon River. And my uncle Donald, who lived in Tanana, was an incredible handyman who could fix almost anything, from household appliances to small aircraft to boat engines. Folks would bring it to him. But when it comes to modern products that now we're dealing with, especially ones with digital parts, even someone with skills like my uncle could struggle to access tools, information needed to keep up with date on these repairs. In Tanana, the nearest repair shop is more than 200 air miles away, which often leaves people with few options besides attempting repairs themselves. So for him and for people in rural communities like his, repair is essential to maintaining daily life. Yet too often, it has been made prohibitively expensive or inaccessible by companies that restrict repair options for consumers. House Bill 162 seeks to address this issue by requiring manufacturers to provide the parts, the tools, and documentation to help us, the consumers, and independent repair providers that they provide to authorized repair providers. This legislation puts power back into our hands and local businesses in our community to keeping us running every day. Thank you to the committee for your time and for considering House Bill 162. And with that, I will now turn it over to Emma Solchinsky to do the slideshow on digital product repair.
And as much as possible, Ms. Solchinsky, if you could help us understand how this is different from the original bill, that would speak to the objection, help a lot. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Emma Solchinsky, intern to Representative Dybert. Thank you for the opportunity to present on HB 162. I have a slideshow prepared to give an overview of the issues that this bill seeks to address and how it would do so. To start with, what is right to repair? This is the principle that consumers and independent repair providers should have the right to maintain and repair their products. As products become more and more modernized, manufacturers are putting digital components in all kinds of things, from toasters to tractors. This can be desirable for consumers in some ways, but this practice has increasingly been used to hinder the repair process, making it significantly more difficult for consumers to fix their products. Through practices such as welding parts together, pairing serial numbers, using proprietary tools, and otherwise encouraging consumers to replace rather than repair their products, manufacturers have effectively created monopolies on the right to repair. In doing so, they cause a myriad of issues, but these issues are especially prevalent here in Alaska, where we are further removed from most authorized repair providers and have higher shipping and travel costs. HB 162 would promote consumer choice and self-reliance by empowering consumers. It would reduce preventable waste and pollution, which is an especially prevalent issue in rural Alaska, where waste management can be a challenge. It supports independent repair businesses by allowing them to fill the gaps left by Alaska's lack of authorized repair businesses, keeping money local. It will reduce financial burdens by allowing consumers to keep their products functional rather than having to pay exorbitant costs for authorized repair or being forced to replace them. It ensures access to repairs on equipment that can be critical to communities for daily life, such as snow machines, farm equipment, and other items that can be central to survival. And it keeps Alaska from falling behind the curve as more states continue to pass right to repair legislation. This bill would work by requiring that manufacturers provide the same parts, tools, and documentation they give to authorized repair providers, to consumers, and independent repair providers, ending these artificial monopolies on repair and putting power back in consumers' hands. On this slide, I have several graphs from the Alaska Environment Research and Policy Center on how far away Alaskan communities are from authorized repair providers. The communities are listed on the bottom, and the distance in miles on the left. As you can see, all Alaskans live more than 500 and up to 2,000 plus miles away from an authorized repair provider for Samsung phones, Lenovo computers, and Maytag appliances, since the nearest authorized repair provider reachable by major airport is in Seattle. For Apple products, Samsung appliances, and LG appliances, the only authorized repair providers are located in Anchorage, with more than a third of Alaskans living more than 100 miles away, including all residents of Fairbanks and Juneau. Some are up to 800 miles and hundreds of dollars in flights away from being able to access these repair providers, leaving them with little choice other than to turn to self-repair, which unfortunately has major barriers due to the manufacturer practices that I've described. One of the major issues that this bill would help to address is the reduction of electronic waste, or e-waste. This form of waste is actually the largest growing waste stream in the world, with an average increase of 2 million metric tons added annually. In the year 2030, it is estimated the global production of e-waste will reach almost 75 million metric tons for the year, which you can see in the graph on the bottom left. On the top left, you can see an image of a common waste management practice in rural Alaska, the burning of waste. In rural communities, which often have unlined landfills, waste management is a tricky issue, and it can often be overwhelming. When it comes to the disposal of e-waste, this is particularly challenging given the amount of toxic chemicals that are often found in electronic products that can leach into soil and water if disposed of improperly, or create toxic fumes if burned. By expanding access to repairs, we can help consumers maintain and extend the useful life of products, diverting waste and reducing the burden on landfills. On this slide, I have a graph created with data from a consumer report survey, which collected nationally representative data from over 2,000 respondents on their experiences and attitudes towards repair. You can see the full results, as well as a brief summary included in our supporting documents, but just to outline a few key points. They found that 53% of respondents had replaced a product sooner than they wanted to because it broke, and 81% had replaced a smartphone, home appliance, and/or vehicle in the past 5 years. 84% agree with a policy that would require manufacturers to make repair information and parts available to independent repair providers or consumers. For an Alaskan perspective, I have this stack of over 250 letters of support from Alaskans in the state, which are included in the supporting documents, along with just under 1,000 petition signatures calling for the passage of this bill. it is clear from this data that consumers support and would benefit from right to repair. So far, right to repair laws have been passed in 12 other states, and right to repair legislation has been introduced in all 50. This slide includes these 12 states and the scope of their laws, as well as some common threads that connect them. The most common target of right to repair legislation is digital electronic equipment, with other bills that target specific industries such as powered wheelchairs, agricultural equipment, and motor vehicles. As right to repair legislation has progressed, it has included lengthening lists of exemptions, which is primarily the effect of industry lobbying. But there are some core exemptions, such as those for medical equipment, that make sense to exclude based on their complexity and intended usage. There are also exceptions that protect trade secrets, intellectual property, and the profitability of business models. Another notable inclusion is the banning of parts pairing, which I will expand on in a later slide. Since I know there were several questions about this bill during its first hearing, I prepared this slide to try to address them. Firstly, on intellectual property. There is no requirement that any information beyond that which is provided to authorized repair providers be made available to the public. And in Section 2, it explicitly states that trade secrets are not required to be disclosed beyond the extent it is necessary to in order to provide the parts, tools, and documentation for repair. The bill does not require the disclosure of source code, and the U.S. Copyright Office confirmed that consumers were not in violation of copyright law when performing their own repairs. Secondly, on financial harms to manufacturers. Manufacturers are able to charge the same rates they give to contractors for their provision of parts, tools, and documentation. We are also very open to including specific carve-outs. SB 111, the Senate companion bill, had heard testimony from industries that operate primarily through a dealership business model, and were concerned this bill would harm their businesses by forcing them to provide parts at costs to consumers on the manufacturer's behalf. To rectify this, Section 2 includes 45.45.840, which allows the agricultural and power sports industries to provide parts on terms and at costs that are reasonable considering the conditions agreed on, the quality of the parts, and the timeliness of the delivery. The office carrying SB 111 is additionally seeking to add heavy industrial machinery and any other businesses that operate on a dealership model to this clause, which we will follow once language is introduced. Third, on financial harm to authorized repair providers. It will likely still be the case that these providers will be preferred for their status and their expertise where they are available. This bill just makes it so that Alaskans who don't have access to these providers are able to take matters into their own hands, and independent repair providers are able to fill the gaps in communities without an authorized repair option.
Later and be like, hey,
it diversifies the market and keeps more money local rather than sending it out of state.
Come on.
Fourth, on product tampering. This bill does not conflict with anti-tampering laws already in place, and cybersecurity experts have concluded that there are no significant security concerns associated with right to repair. The emission trackers on certain farm equipment were brought up specifically as a tampering concern, but the truth of the matter is that a lack of right to repair generally tends to lead more consumers to buy older, less emissions-friendly equipment that they're able to repair over newer models with a better emissions profile that they don't have the ability to repair easily. So right to repair could actually encourage the adoption of these models and bring more consumers into emissions limit attainment. And finally, when it comes to concerns that repairs may void warranties. Under the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, consumer or third-party repair is not a valid reason to void a warranty unless it is provable that said repair is what damaged the product in the first place. Practices like putting stickers that say warranty is void if the sticker is removed are unenforceable and actually illegal on a federal level. In the hearings on SB 111, Senator Dunbar and his team heard some testimony that prompted them to amend their bill in order to address some of the concerns that were brought forward. These amendments exempt medical devices from the bill, as there is not a strong demand for right to repair on these products, and the industry requested it over safety concerns. They also include the power sports industry in the clause that allows the agriculture industry to sell parts at a reasonable price considering their dealership business model. And they additionally prohibit parts pairing and similar practices, which generally refers to the practice of serializing parts to reduce functionality if installed in an unapproved device. For example, someone might try switching the screens between two identical iPhones, but they're serialized so that the screens will not function if placed in an iPhone without the manufacturer syncing the part, making it so only the manufacturer can replace it. So if an independent repair provider attempts to install an on-brand iPhone screen, it will generate pop-ups and error messages saying the part is not genuine, and it may reduce the functionality of certain features such as Face ID. Manufacturers argue that this ensures that parts are authenticated, but in reality, it works to uphold repair monopolies and discourage independent and consumer repair. And lastly, the final change is updating the effective date to January 1st, 2027. In adopting the CS with these changes, we make vital improvements to the scope of the bill and incorporate provisions to address concerns. If it pleases the committee, I'm ready to take any questions you might have.
I think before we go to questions, we should adopt the CS. So do you maintain your objection, Representative Prox?
Just a question for the sponsor. Does the sponsor go along with the committee substitute?
Representative Dybert.
Through the chair, sorry.
Yes. Through the chair to Representative Prox, yes. And follow up to your earlier question, I wanted just to add a thought to that, a follow-up to that.
Representative Dybert.
Thank you. Through the co-chair to Representative Prox. After watching the slideshow, you can see that most of the changes made in with this bill are generally made to ensure the protection of intellectual property and
How are
for
you guys
public
doing?
safety.
Sloth
For
naked?
example, repair
Forgot
of
to ask you.
advanced medical
Yeah, I saw it. Let's see how you're
devices
doing.
like wheelchairs and
Hope you all are well.
other things that I wouldn't know a lot more about, while still protecting the rights of individual Alaskans to repair their items rather than replace their devices.
Okay. Do you maintain your objection?
No.
Okay, seeing no further objection, the committee substitute for HB 162 Work Draft 34-LS0809/G is adopted as the working document. Are there questions for Representative Dybert or staff Emma Solchinsky on the presentation? Is there any committee discussion before we go to invited testimony? We have 3 invited testifiers. Okay, maybe we'll just go ahead and take the invited testimony, and then we'll have, I'm sure, robust committee discussion after that. And we did notice public testimony, so we might limit that discussion today and ask you to hold questions because we have 11 people so far that I know of who would like to testify. So want to give everybody, since we advertised that, time. Okay, so we're going to go to our first invited testifier, whose name I'm more than likely going to say wrong. Diani Chapman from, you are the state director for the Alaska Environment. If you could put your name on record and say it correctly for me, that would be awesome, and begin your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you to the chair and the committee for taking testimony. For the record, my name is Diani Chapman. You did get the pronunciation correct, and I'm the state director of Alaska Environment. We are a statewide environmental advocacy group that works on issues relating to clean air, clean water, and open space. And Emma gave a great background on this, and so I'll keep this brief. But many manufacturers of electronics monopolize access to spare parts, tools, software, and schematics necessary to repair equipment. And this can play out in a range of ways. Sometimes manufacturers will use unique tools or parts that aren't available broadly. They'll change the configuration of a screw or something like that to make it so you can't change a battery out. They'll lock repair functions behind software, or when schematics are unavailable to independent repair shops or handy individuals.
Because of how close
folks
it
can be
is to
forced
me
into
having
larger
to
and more
opening the
expensive
store,
repairs, like replacing an entire motherboard rather than soldering a single fuse, which would only cost pennies.
The live
And then
stream
overall, these
in chat,
limitations mean
the
that for
link,
many
so feel free
repairs,
to
the
go
only
to it.
option is to go to an
Because if it
authorized
gets
repair
any closer to
provider.
opening, I have to end my
And because
stream,
they have a
but I'm
monopoly,
still
they
going to
can
be
charge
testifying
enough for the
because it'll be
repair to
through
just
my
inspire the
Bluetooth.
person to buy new.
So you'll still
And
be
this is
able
an
to hear
extra
my
large problem in
testimony if they do
Alaska
public
because we have
testimony.
limited access to
They're
authorized
doing it
repair in
right
the state, and we often have to leave the state or fly someone in for repairs. And there's obviously a couple different problems that come up when we have limited repair access. From an environmental perspective, electronic waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. And electronic recycling, unfortunately, just doesn't actually work that well. In 2022, only 22.3% of electronic waste was collected for formal recycling and actually recycled. And that's because it's challenging to separate out the non-recyclable components, and it can be dangerous. When we throw electronics away, toxic chemicals can get into our water, soil, and air, leading to exposure to things like lead, mercury, arsenic, and other chemicals that can cause cancer risk, miscarriages, and neurological damage. And as mentioned in the overview, in Alaska, rural landfills are often unlined and most burned to reduce volume. And this can cause an even bigger problem for people and wildlife in the area as permafrost melts. So continued use is safer, making access to repair essential. And then the production of new electronics also comes with a pollution burden and its poor stewardship of valuable minerals to treat them as disposable. There's obviously financial impacts on poor repair access as well. We did a study a couple years ago, and repair would save the average family in Alaska an average of $382 per year just on consumer products. And Alaskans who rely on things like snow machines, electronic fishing gear, et cetera, would see an even greater benefit for being able to access independent repair shops or be able to do things themselves. From a local resiliency perspective, we have many independent repair shops throughout the state, and we have even more people who are handy and can figure out how to fix things when they break. And Alaskans really value being able to take care of things themselves or rely on their local community as opposed to the global supply chain of stuff. And when repair shops can't get the parts that they need or individual...
Okay. I don't know when I'm testifying. Whenever they do public testimony, for some reason they didn't include me in invited testimony, only public. But the link is in the chat, guys, because here in about 10-15 minutes I have to go. So I'll have to end my stream. So make sure you all open that link. Also, I included the link to the bill in the top of my chat.
Support. Several states have already passed legislation ranging from Texas to California, and most of the time rates for repair bills get close to unanimous support on the floor. Both the Trump administration and the Biden administration have expressed support as well. I encourage you to support this bill and give Alaskans the freedom to fix their electronics locally.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman, for your testimony. We do have a question for you, Representative Holland.
Great, thank you through the chair, and I realize we've got a lot of folks here, so I'll try and make this brief. But Ms. Chapman, I'm curious from your discussion about what you've learned about consumer costs, and you know, when we look at the newer products, whether it's a snow machine or a car, we really benefit a lot from the fact that most of these products now last a long time without needing a lot of repair. Most people can buy a car and run it for 10 years and change oil, and that's it, or a snow machine. And I'm curious, in your surveying of...
No, Sloth, I don't. The moment that they got advertised that they can use the jailbreak, all of a sudden I got completely wiped out of them.
Used to expect. So are consumers saving because of new products and the way they're built? But understand it makes it hard to repair, but maybe they don't need it.
Yeah, I can
Chapman.
I can absolutely talk about this. Yeah, through the chair. So the survey that we did with the savings of $382 per year, that was exclusively for consumer products. And so extending it to things like snow machines and fishing gear, etc., is something that was not included in that initial report. I think that the car issue is a little bit separate, and I don't think I have the expertise to talk about that right now, and this bill does not actually address motor vehicles. I think in terms of the rest of equipment, durability is a huge way to make it so that we can keep using products for longer. And I think that an example of this where I know that repair is really important is with agricultural equipment. Farmers have experienced so many problems with how expensive it is to fix the new equipment that there is actually rising demand to buy much older models that do not have digital components because it is not working out for them financially to have this more durable new equipment that has digital components, because when they do have to fix it, it is so expensive. And so I don't know how exactly this plays out with snow machines, but I do know that for agricultural equipment, there is a strong impetus to actually return to older models because authorized repair for farm equipment has been so expensive. And so I think that it probably balances out. I am definitely a strong advocate for companies making durable products. And I think that, you know, industries that are making good durable products are unconcerned about right to repair because it's not going to matter.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Chapman? Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Ms. Chapman. We're going to move.
I'll have to double check, but I didn't see How is it Justin got invited, but I didn't?
Testimony.
Thank you to the chair and representative. For the record, my name is Justin Castle, and I am the independent business owner of Eagle River Electronics, business that repairs and services any electronics that we can. Recently, I wrote an op-ed into the Alaskan Beacon attempting to spread awareness of the right to repair and how it affects real Alaskans, especially highlighting the bills in both the Senate and the House. That piece that I wrote had a bigger impact than I anticipated. I was told that many of you have read it, so first off, thanks to all of you for giving my words your time and consideration, and especially thanks to Representative Dybert, who on your behalf I was invited to speak to this committee. In my paper, I talked about 3 of my clients, members of my community who came to me for help, and I talked about how the lack of a right to repair meant that I could not help them. Since then, I have had some successes. A cash counting machine for a local used car lot was successfully repaired. A pill counter for a pharmacy was made operational again, and I was able to replace some capacitors on a snowblower. But all of that was in spite of manufacturers' best efforts to stymie independent repair. But I've had even more failures since then. Some examples is a monitor display at a local business, a MacBook used by a graphic designer, and a controller for a...
I'll check sloths. If I do, I'll shoot you a DM, but I don't recall having seen one. I still want to know how Justin became invited over me when I do more. What did you do? I'm glad at least one of us got invited.
Functionality, even when there's no Apple Store within hundreds of miles. It's because Honeywell won't let anyone but their personal technicians who aren't even...
Anytime, sloth.
Beyond my community and my business, I've had more than a dozen people from all across the state reach out to me to thank me for writing that article, share their support, and some of them shared their stories. Regular people, Alaskan citizens. One business owner from Juneau reached out to express their sentiments that they've had similar experiences and lost many clients because things couldn't be fixed in a straightforward manner. A person from Kodiak told me that it was a stirring discussion topic amongst their group of friends, and everyone they talked to could agree and had personally experienced something similar. A farmer out in Palmer relayed to me that John Deere's prohibition against repairs of their tractors and other farming equipment had cost his business tens of thousands of dollars. And a great family from Fairbanks sent their support with concerns that the lack of a right to repair is destroying our environment and creating a throwaway society. Several of these people have physically mailed me newspapers that they paid for. At first it was a novelty, but as more and more people reached out to me, I realized it was a better purpose. Physical evidence of the great citizens all around the state who stand for the right to repair and are taking extra steps at personal expense to add their voices in support of the right to repair. Alaskan citizens notice that the current laws support big businesses at the expense of everyone else, and we're all sick of it. Alaskan citizens support the right to repair from what I have seen. House Bill 162 would require manufacturers to provide access to tools, parts, and documentation for most types of devices, both to repair shops like mine and independent citizens who want to work on their own property, as is the American way. This is why I believe the House should carefully consider Bill 162. It is the right thing to do, not for the billionaires, but for real Alaskans all around the state. I'd just like to thank the committee for your time and willingness to consider Bill 162.
Thank you for your testimony. We have a quick question from Representative Holland.
Great. Thank you, Chair Himshoot. To Mr. Castle. You, sir, sound like you've probably done a lot of repairs. I am presuming you may have a fair amount of training from some source in the past. If we consider something like the capacitor repair on the snowblower, do you feel that the average citizen that owns the products that you've done repair, if they had access to being able to buy the capacitor, could have diagnosed and fixed that machine properly and so it would operate safely? Or was it necessary for you, with the training and experience, to be able to do that repair correctly and safely?
Mr. Castle?
Sure. So the snowblower is a great example. I'll just give you a brief rundown of how that repair went. A person brought in their snowblower to me, taking it apart to get to the part that had blown out, the power control unit, that's the proper term, required nothing more than a regular Phillips head screwdriver. Once I had got that circuit board out, in order to service that, I had to get it under a microscope that I have for servicing electronic components. This microscope cost about $200 just for reference. And I used about $30 multimeter to go over the parts until I found the capacitor that was bad. And finding the bad capacitor is you check it for short, and if it has continuity all the way through, even when it's disconnected from the circuit, it is shorted. Once I did find that bad capacitor, it's just a matter of identifying it. And in this case, the capacitor on this snow blower was labeled. I don't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head, but it was labeled. And I looked it up, and I found a replacement on DigiKey, which is a website that sells electronic components similar to how Radio Shack used to. The component itself cost like $1.50. Shipping was about $10. The shipping cost more than the component. Once it was delivered, it was a case of using a soldering iron to remove the bad one from the board, install the new one, and put it all back together.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now to our final invited testifier, Joe Torma with Green Star Invited. Please put your name on the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Joe Torma. I'm with Green Star of Interior, Alaska. I'm the general manager and really appreciate the invitation to speak up a little bit about right to repair. I think the issue's been covered very well, but to give you a little bit of background, Green Star is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Fairbanks since the mid-90s. And largely focused on electronics recycling, keeping the electronics out of the waste stream, out of our landfills. Have been the electronics recycler for the Fairbanks North Star Borough since they opened their central recycling facility in 2017. And recently, when the Fairbanks Rescue Mission decided they didn't want to operate the central recycling facility any longer, Green Star became the operator of the central recycling facility for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. So we broadened our perspective to include more than electronics, but really electronics is kind of where we cut our teeth and where we are still largely focused because of some of the negative impacts that have already been identified by some of the other folks that have testified. In our capacity as the electronics recycler for the Fairbanks North Star Borough, last year in fiscal year 2024, I'm sorry, that ended in June of last, I'm getting my fiscal years wrong. 131 tons of electronic waste came through the central recycling facility and made it to Green Star for recycling. In addition to that, we're also the rural coordinator for backhaul of electronics out of rural communities for Interior Alaska. We received an additional 14 tons of electronics from villages and communities, primarily served by the river, but also flown in some cases in a couple of communities that are on the roadway as well. Our first order of business when we receive all these electronics for recycling is to try and figure out what can be kept alive. We do that with some volunteers and some staff that take a close look at what's coming in and try and diagnose what the problems are. And has already been identified by some of the folks here, one of the biggest problems we have when we come across, in particular, computers. We don't do anything with phones or tablets anymore because it's impossible to get the parts from these manufacturers who created these walled garden approaches to the repair ecosystem that they've created around these products. Or in many cases, as was brought up earlier by somebody, they're just designed for obsolescence. It's designed so that the repair costs more than buying a new one. So, you know, chuck it and move on is increasingly something that we see in the electronics marketplace. So in 2020, as a response to COVID, is really when we started taking a more focused approach on trying to make electronics available to the community, because all of a sudden every school kid in Alaska needed a way to go to school from home. And so we started taking a closer look at some of the computers and laptops that were coming in for recycling, getting those going again and making them available to school kids. That became what's now known as our Reboot It Technology Grants Program, which just last year granted over 200 computer systems and laptops to low-income and nonprofit organizations all across Alaska. Actually, we've shipped them from the Aleutian Islands to the Kenai Peninsula and primarily in interior Alaska. Anyway, the reality is that in performing all of those diagnostic and attempted reclaim activities, increasingly we run into more and more.
Hey guys, I posted the links both for the bill and for this live stream in my post section on YouTube. I'm going to have to end the stream because I have to go get the storefront ready to be opened. So, thank you all very much for coming in. I'm not going to do my end clip with the Star Wars stuff. But yeah, make sure you go to my post section and grab those links. So, thank you all very much for coming in, and I'll see you all in the next one. Later.